28-3. Arthur Blank loving it. Up by 25. Toss to White. He's in! What a comeback!
All right, guys, you were listening to the 28-3 podcast. I'm Corey. I'm here with Max and Nick. Today we're talking draft, one of our first few draft episodes. There's been a lot of talk about how the Saints should go about their draft. Do they trade up? Do they trade back? What positions are we looking for? We've all been talking a little bit about this. Max, what are you thinking about what the Saints should do here?
Yeah, I think in terms of draft strategy, the Saints will never do this. I think every year I say they should trade back and get a few more picks in the middle and late rounds, since we've done such a great job of drafting in those rounds over the past few years. But every year the Saints, they do the opposite. They trade away picks from next year to move up to get a player in this year's draft. Obviously, the last couple of years it hasn't really worked out. When you look at, Marcus Davenport being the prime example, that was a huge whiff. We can call him, pretty safe to say we can call him a draft bust at this point, now that he's playing in Minnesota. But I'm always in favor of trading back, get us some more picks. Draft picks are like lottery tickets. Just give me some more scratches.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. We talked, or there's been a lot of talk about, all right, last year trading up to get Olave and Penning meant that we shipped the Eagles, who already, had their embarrassment of riches in terms of personnel atop.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. No one knew the Eagles were that stacked going into the year. So that's it's impossible to really say that.
So this year, I think people knew they were pretty stacked.
I mean, were you picking them to be number one in the NFC by far?
I think people were. They were definitely picked to win their division. Who was ahead of them?
Maybe to win the division, but not, to be the number one seed in the NFC.
But who was ahead of them, definitively?
The Packers were getting a lot of buzz last year. They kind of fell short, obviously.
Really? Yeah. After losing Adams? I don't know. I think they were pretty highly touted. I think the only question mark was Jalen.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a common theme in the NFL every year where people look to certain teams and there's obvious favorites, and then the season begins, and then come week 5 or 6, people are changing their tune about different teams. But I think the question, given how we traded up last year and then what impact that had on this year's draft class, do we think that now, in hindsight, the difference between pick 10 and pick 29 is as bad as we thought it was going to be when it first happened?
I think there's a lot of really good players this year in the first round, or the first 35, 40 picks. Whether that's different than most years, I think it's a little bit more stacked this year for our needs, especially being, in my opinion, tackle, tight end, running back. There's going to be a bunch of options late in the first round there. We'll have to choose between those.
Yeah, I don't know. Are you ready to go tackle and plan for the future with Ramczyk's knees, or is that what you're thinking?
No, I meant defensive tackle. I didn't mean offensive.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. Yeah, defensive tackle, I mean, obviously, it's still a need, given that I think we only have 3 of them on the roster at this point, 3 or 4.
Right.
And one of them is that Prince Amali. I don't even know how to say his name, so obviously you can't really count on him. But Colin Saunders, those guys, they're going to be good signings, but I think you do need you need a beast at tackle. We got to get somebody with some pedigree.
My question, because that's been the popular choice from a lot of people, is, all right, that's our biggest need. We therefore just use our top draft pick on that need. I mean, do we think we really get an impact defensive tackle at pick 29?
Well, here's the thing. It depends on the style of tackle you're looking for. See, if you're looking for the big space-eating, run-stuffing guy, like, think Norman Hand type, from back in the day. Well, I'm trying to think. Who was the who was that big brute we had on the Super Bowl team? came from Detroit.
Hargrave?
No, Hargrave was small. Hargrave was
Yeah, I didn't
more
think
of
he was
a,
that big.
He was more of a 3 tech.
Oh, Hollis Thomas.
Hollis Thomas was. He was.
Hollis
the
Thomas
Eagles.
was a big one. There was the real big dude. I can't remember his damn name. It's killing me. Anyway, if you're looking for the real big space eating run stoppers, you can get those guys in like the second and third round because they don't usually offer as much in pass rush. But if you want a 3 tech, think like a Leroy Glover type, someone smaller.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are usually at a premium in the first round.
Well, because that's kind of my take on it. I don't know that you're going to get, because when people think about first round defensive tackle, and I think most Saints fans, when they're thinking, we're going to get a defensive tackle, he's going to come in,
I
he's
just
going
want
to
to
be
know
awesome,
who
dude.
Max is talking about. John Jenkins? Who are you talking about?
Jenkins was another big one. No, I'm finding it right now.
But I don't think, unless we're picking in the top 10, or we're picking, and maybe I'm proving my point earlier, but or maybe even top 5.
Well, I think the answer to that
you're
is
not
how
going to get
deep-
some.
Sean Rogers.
Okay, yeah, he's a big.
Yeah,
he's a
that
big
big
fucker.
monster.
That guy was fat.
I think I'd rather just, in terms of defensive tackle, I don't know that we're going to draft a first rounder that is going to be, at least next year, so much better than Colin Saunders or anybody else we've already got on the roster or in free agency. And so it makes me think that what better complements our roster right now? A running back at 29, if he's there, a tight end at 29. I don't even, we haven't even talked about the tight ends in this draft. I don't know who
Tight end's loaded.
who would I even want as tight end? Gosh,
Gee, I
don't-
wonder
can't-
who could it be?
I can't
that
think.
guy that wears
There are like
0.
0 people I could think of.
But he's the third-rated tight end.
He should be number 1. I'm biased, but
On most boards, he's the third best tight end.
Yeah, and there's possibly
It's because
3
he-
tight ends that go in the first round this year. So that would put the third one right around 29.
the biggest knock I've
He
seen.
could also make it to our second pick, though. You don't know that.
He could absolutely.
Oh yeah, he could. At the risk of turning this into a Darnell Washington podcast, I will say the biggest knock that people have had on him is that there's just
He was
not
the second best tight end on his team.
well next to the best tight end in college football.
But
But there's not enough.
the best player in college football.
Or that hey look, I'm not going to argue with that on Brock Bowers, who we'll be talking.
I don't
about
even think Nick
on
will argue with that. That's,
next year's draft
Should have won the Heisman.
podcast. But the thing is, Darnell doesn't have as much on tape because of Brock Bowers. But the thing is, like, should that alone be that much of a knock when the dude is 6'?
So he's there
6'7"?
and Myers there. He's there and Myers there. You're taking
Right.
him, or you're taking Myers?
I think Darnell's ceiling is so much higher than Myers that I got to go.
I'll put it this way.
Do
I
you
will
want a
not be
weapon
mad.
immediately, or do you want a full, a tight end that can do everything?
Yeah.
Right.
The only problem with Myers versus Darnell,
Is it Meyer
when
or
Darnell's
Mayer?
had to,
Mayer, Meyer.
Mayer.
whatever.
Meyer.
when Darnell has had to block, he
Well, here's the
he
thing.
has done it
Darnell is
very
a
well.
third offensive tackle.
right.
If we're being honest.
Some
So
people
that's the
have even
benefit.
said maybe.
So
he
do you want
projects-
another weapon for Carr? Do you want to?
No, Darnell does project to be a weapon for Carr as well, because he does have. I don't know what the difference
Because
in
he's
their 40
100 feet
times.
tall.
He's
for
100
his
feet
for his
tall.
size, he has speed.
Right. And so my concern with Myers that, Mayer, whatever it is that eventually, people are going to catch up with him in terms of the people guarding him. I mean, like
I don't know. I
linebacker.
think
Is he or
Mayer's-
is he Kelsey or is
These
he?
linebackers-
Mayer could be a Kelsey dude. He is awesome.
So that's a tough decision if they're both
He
there.
doesn't strike me as
Or do you wait?
Maybe as-
Or do you wait and you think 2 tight ends won't be picked before you pick again?
That's
You
the
sit
thing.
tight
You could
and take
play the
another
value aspect of it and get the best tight end at number 40.
There is a high likelihood when we pick one of those 3 tight ends is still there.
Yeah, agreed.
But you'd have to be okay with any of them.
Well, Dalton Kincaid is.
He's
going to
go sooner than he's even projected, I think.
yeah.
But keep in mind, out of the 3 tight ends, he is by far the worst blocker. You know, his game is not blocking at all.
Who's that,
The
Kincaid?
other 2, Mayer's he's a really good all-around guy.
Right.
Darnell, obviously more of a blocker at this point, but Darnell's ceiling is enormous.
He's kind of a red
You're
zone-
projecting with him, though.
You have to project with, even if I
I think he
wasn't.
had 400 career yards at Georgia. Now, obviously playing with Brock Bowers, but
You're not drafting him on his college stats.
Right.
You're just not. But when you've seen a select number of red zone catches that he's had, when you see the certain catches he made, granted,
when I see him jumping over people,
it's against the air, but some of the catches he made at the combine,
What if one of them and Gibbs is there, or one of
I
them?
want Gibbs.
You
Gibbs
know,
is my guy.
Or the tackle we want from Clemson, by all
Breezy.
mock drafts we're all seeing. If he's there and Bijan's there, or if like something crazy could happen where one of these guys is sitting there.
Well, then, so that's where
Do
you
they
go.
take best available, or do they stick to we need a tackle?
Yeah.
I
think
hope
that's
you
the
go
big
best
question.
available.
They
You
should.
know, they usually do.
Right. And in the Ireland era, which has been
Except
the
when they
past
force
few
it,
years,
which is usually a trade up.
they usually
That's
Yeah,
when they're
that's when we
forcing.
strike out.
It seems like they go best available, but they also go with that raw score that we've been seeing a lot.
The RAS,
Flitting.
yeah,
Is it RAS?
RAS, RAS, relative
Not
athletic
raw.
score.
Yeah, that one.
There you go. Good prep. Good
Raw.
prep.
Like,
Which
oh,
is-
I'm sorry, you prepped for this?
No, but you know,
Well, it just takes a combination of pretty much any athletic measurable and kind of
well,
compresses it.
here's the
into
biggest thing
one.
with the Saints. So what they do is they do their average size at each position, and then they're not picking somebody unless that person's exceptional that falls below that size range. That's why you always see them with these really big defensive ends.
One panic pick was Ruiz.
Yeah, yeah.
and he
So
still looked.
occasionally we just go,
But remember, Ruiz he's big and he was a beast, so he kind of fits that RAS.
but it was way
profile.
early, just like Turner. It was early by all accounts.
Well, he's a center. He was a center, and he should have been. You rarely see centers in the first round unless they are absolute studs. So he's more of a second round pick anyway.
Right.
So they reach for him.
They
Yeah.
reach for
Yeah.
him. They reach. So
But he
a
was
couple
awesome in
times they have
college.
panicked on position, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
He plays like a panic pick, to be honest.
He was solid this year, man.
I know he did have better.
Look, he was
years.
garbage the first.
He was
couple.
on the field, which was helpful.
Yeah,
The
Well,
rest
it's
of the
funny,
line
he was the
on-
one that never got hurt until he got hurt finally at the end of this year when he was playing well. When he
yeah.
sucked,
No, he did. He
that
did
dude
play
was
better.
fucking Wolverine. Like
Right.
anything that happened, he would regenerate in the middle of the game and come right back out the next play.
Yeah, yeah. The question.
So you want him to
Two.
take best available.
I'm always best
Everybody's on
available.
that, regardless.
To me, get playmakers, man. And look, your
What
playmakers.
if best available is a offensive lineman? You still do it.
If it's someone that's that far ahead of everybody else, I don't have a problem with it. Ramchak was that situation.
But they still want an offensive line in that draft.
They wanted Reuben Foster with that pick,
They did.
and they got saved by the 49ers.
Right. But still, OT was on their
Yeah, it
priority
was.
list.
But
So they
again,
didn't have to like reach or go crazy.
Right.
They just took the next best player on their board. That was definitely a best player pick.
I love best player. That should be the way.
But
it
he
is.
also started day one. So it wasn't a luxury pick like it would be this year potentially if you took a tackle, say, offensive
But he
tackle.
wasn't supposed to start day one. Remember, because Streif got banged up, and that was the only reason he got in. So the intention wasn't.
What
to
else
have
was
him.
going on that year? Something else was going on. Was that the what was the year Peyton got pissed? No, that was the Ruiz year when he got pissed at him being
Warford.
overweight. Yeah, Warford being
So we
overweight.
pick a center and move him to guard. Brilliant.
Right, which was a catastrophe the
Oh,
first couple.
God, what an asshole. Well, it's like Zach Bond. You draft a
Yeah,
smaller, admittedly smaller pass rusher in college, and guy puts up a bunch of sacks. All of a sudden, we're going to move him to off the ball linebacker, and he's not going to ever rush the passer.
Or play.
Yeah, so hopefully he follows in the Caden Ellis footsteps this year and actually does something after doing nothing for 3 years.
Yeah, hopefully he's a if given the opportunity type of guy. I'm thinking of 2 yes or no questions. One of them is the first one: do we have the luxury of drafting best player available? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes, you should always draft best player available.
But you should.
but no, the
But-
roster is good enough, I think, to draft best available.
Yeah, because
yes.
the question is, do we really not have such a big need at any
You
one
can't
given
you can't
position?
just draft for need because then don't force it because of need. Don't elevate
Well,
someone
the-
who's
the best teams can draft a position. The Eagles are likely to draft a running back at 10. Okay. That is generally a bad move
Yeah,
as far as what the pick is worth. They could do that this year because of how their roster is constructed this year.
they're the one team that could take running
Or the
Bijan
49ers could
Yeah.
draft whatever they want. It doesn't matter. They're
Yeah.
kind of set at every position. The Saints aren't obviously in that level of depth on the roster, but it's a roster that's pretty solid on every level. It isn't
Yeah.
perfect. So, but I think you could make a case that if you got a contributing player at any part of the team, that it would help the team.
'Cause I'll
There's
say-
no giant hole other than defensive tackle. But to what you said, you're not solving defensive tackle at 29 most likely.
It's what it's
You know what?
to
Though,
me.
but
It's one of those
ones,
positions.
Our
you're
ones
not,
are fine. It's when you get to the 2s and the 3s.
But they're
that's
just
where we have
good.
the issue.
Well, 'cause
But they're just good.
I think of
they're
when
not.
I, when I asked
we
the,
don't have an impact player at tackle.
Yeah, when I asked the best
Defensively.
player available question, because I think of last year when like you said, Max, like this year our ones are fine, but last year when I think we had to draft a wide receiver.
Oh, you had to last
That's what
year.
I'm saying. Like
Had to.
That's not the case this year, is what I'm saying. So it sounds like the question is yes, the best player available. And the other question, and it comes up literally every other year with the Saints, if not more, yes or no, do we actually stay at 29 in the first
I
round?
think they'll move up.
I hope they don't move up.
I hope they don't, but I think they will.
What do you
It might be to only like 21, 22.
Yeah.
You know, if someone
Okay.
like
If they move up, why and what's it for? What player is it for to move up 10 spots?
Because Loomis
Who?
he covets a guy and gets nervous.
Right. Who's that player? Do you have a guess of where Loomis would be? Like, I have to have
I'm going to
this guy?
guess a defensive end like Lucas Van Ness from Iowa,
Yeah.
someone who's projected in the early teens. And if he slips to like 20, 21, 22.
So
I
you're
think
saying
I think you see the Saints pull the
if
trigger
someone
on him.
slips,
Yeah. If someone who is projected in like those top 15 picks or so, if someone makes it to 20, 21, I think the Saints move up. If it's one of the guys you're looking at.
Well, also,
what if they
it's a
traded
guy
multiple
who's-
picks to go get Bijan at 19?
I don't know if they covet Bijan that much.
I'm just saying, that's an
given-
example.
They
I mean, you-
supposedly like Bijan and Jameer Gibbs a
Yeah.
lot. Now,
And there's no doubt that's still a position that is in flux at minimum with whatever AK.
I'm going to say this. It would depend on what they traded. If I don't want anything to do with trading next year's first round pick. Do not fucking do that. It bit us in the ass this year because we could have the 10th pick and the 29th pick and
Yeah.
really go make some magic. Do not trade the first round pick next year. That
about-
being said, I'm fine with any other pick from next year's draft getting used.
second.
I'm fine with the second. And actually, hold on. We have the Broncos second.
You would trade a
next year.
1, the 29, and a 2 next year to move up 10 spots to get somebody.
You could probably
Is that
get
what
up
you-
higher than 10 spots with a 2. But depending on who it is, I'd be okay with it.
Not by our past history, but
It depends on where you're going. To get from 29 to like 21,
What did we
22,
get-
it should be like a third and maybe like a fifth. or
Davenport, how many spots we moved up?
something. Oh,
16?
yeah, but you went up to what, 14?
12, right? Wasn't he 12? What was Davenport picked? 12th, 13th? Somewhere in there.
To look
And
at.
we were 28? that
28,
year?
I believe.
So to move up 15 spots, I mean, it's a big jump. But we
That's
gave
a
up,
big. That's a bigger jump.
But didn't we
though.
give up a 1 and like a 3? What was it? 2 1s, a 3 for to move up to
something
16
like that?
spots?
Yeah.
To
Cool,
get
you
the,
checking it?
something like that.
That's the thing.
He was the 14th pick.
14, yeah. So there's a premium to get into the top 15. But to get up to like 20, 21, it's not as much. You can do it for a third.
Which is
and-
crazy because that was catastrophic.
Yeah.
Oh, it was awful. I mean, it's not quite up there with the Jonathan Sullivan trade, but
Ooh, Sullivan, that one hurt.
nice Georgia boy there.
Yeah, that
Rumor has it he's still
didn't
eating
pan out.
hot dogs in the press box.
that's just a rumor.
Yeah.
Sounded like fact.
Yeah, but look, if someone like a Van Ness or someone who's projected to go in the top 12 to 15 makes it to 21, 22, I'm fine going to get him. Hell, if Bijan's there at 21, 22, go get him.
You would go get him? That's what I'm asking.
I
Would you
would.
go get him?
I
Is he
would.
that big of a player? Like, who else?
By all accounts, Bijan is in every team's top 5 players overall.
Really?
Yeah, that's the word going around. He's in everyone's top 5.
I think that's what ends up causing the Loomis panic button situation when someone who's in their top 5 bubble falls down, where other teams don't have that guy in that range, like with Olave last year.
Right. But you can pretty safely say that Bijan is in pretty much everyone's top 5.
Yep.
I mean,
Top
they talk
5
about him. They say
overall
he's a Saquon Barkley type. Barkley was the second pick in the draft, which
And a
is way too
mistake.
high.
A mistake.
But do we
Yeah,
think
at number 2, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean-
but at number 19, 20, 21,
One elite year, one great year, 2 injured years, 1 average year. Out of number 2 pick who you paid top dollar the whole time.
Agreed. Number 2, mistake. But in number 19, 20, 21, I'd do it.
But not at 19, 20, 21. 19, 20, 21 with added picks to get there. Still?
If you were giving up like a third and a fifth, yeah, do it. I would.
So I'd use a first, third, and fifth for a running back.
Yeah. Bijan? Absolutely.
Seems pretty steep.
That seems like a lot for a running back. I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, especially a team
That's
that
fine, but I mean, you're talking about an elite running back.
I know that Jamal Williams is our only viable option until Kamara
Right.
comes back from his inevitable suspension. But
That's why we're asking the question. Is
But
it worth it to...
I don't think it is.
is. I think...
That's fine. I would absolutely do
we're
it.
ganging up on Max here.
No, look, and that's fine. This is the hill I will die on. If
Saquon
Jameer
is-
Gibbs is there at 29, I sprint to the podium and take Jameer Gibbs.
problem is Saquon is an incredible player, but he still is not worth what it cost for him to get that. The
agree with
injury
you. He's
aspect
not
of
worth the
running
second
backs
pick.
across the board is too high
Well, also-
to give up capital, I think.
When you say, and I'm not just picking on, well, maybe I'm picking on you, Max, but the
I
thing,
mean,
the
McCaffrey, look
statement
at the
of,
numbers he's put up from his draft
But
slot,
it-
first rounder.
Two full injured years where he was basically unavailable for half the season.
whether we're talking about Bijan or Gibbs, when we say somebody is a blank type of player, we say, if you said Bijan's a Saquon type of player, is he Saquon? Or is he Saquon light?
Let's say he matches Saquon. Are we still okay
If he- look,
using
I
three
think
picks
he's a
to
better
get him?
pro than Saquon once we get a couple years into it.
Ooh,
He's not a better
that's a
talent.
big statement.
He's as good of a talent as Saquon.
Coming out, you think he's as good a talent as
Yeah.
Saquon?
If
Dude, Bijan's incredible.
You forget the hype of Saquon. Though, I
Saquon
think.
was like
Saquon's hype was
Superman coming out of
crazy.
college.
Well, it's fine, but you're going to be able to get Bijan way lower than you could get Saquon, which means he's probably
Well,
going
yeah.
to go to a better team, not a team picking second in the draft.
But none of that should matter. None of that should matter. It should just be the player.
Well,
is he
but
as
the
good?
reality is it does matter. It doesn't matter the position. It does
Just
matter
because
what
you're a
team
better
you go to.
team, you'll spend more to get a running back.
What
I
if,
mean-
yeah. What if you had so everyone
Let's look.
is pick the top 2 offensive tackle is available.
Let's look at this. How many of the top 10 running backs in the league were first round picks? Or let's just say top 20 picks. How many?
Well, who
Who's the top 10? Chubb.
he was
Where's Chubb,
first
second?
round.
Second.
round, wasn't he?
No, his buddy was first round pick. Sony was the first round pick.
Yeah.
Wasn't Chubb a second round pick? Kamara, if he's still in the top 10.
You should know this, Corey.
Derrick Henry,
Well, Chubb's a first rounder. in my
Cook.
mind. Yeah.
Dalvin.
Oh yeah,
None of these are top 20 picks.
yeah, but
So is it worth using multiple picks when there's that much
Yeah,
success?
I mean, Chubb was picked
for
35.
Bijan, if
Second
you-
round, right? Chubb. So Chubb
Yeah,
was
they're all
third.
second
It's the
rounders.
third pick of the second round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still, that's not a top 20
if
pick.
he's in the 20s, I'm not advocating going up to the top 15, top.
I can agree with you if we sit tight and he falls to 29. I don't know about
I'm saying
giving
if he gets to
extra
20,
picks.
21, 22, and it only costs about a third, which is what it supposedly costs on the trade chart.
That's a lot for a running back. It's not a knock on him at all. It's just a lot for a
No, I
running
hear
back.
you, but I mean that's also been your draft philosophy for years, is that you never wanted a running back in the first round.
No.
But I will
Because the injuries
gladly
are
give
too
up a third rounder to move up 6, 7 spots to go get Bijan if he's there in the early 20s.
Okay.
Standing pat at 29, give me Jameer Gibbs if he's there. But you
Over
could also-
Bijan?
What's that?
Over Bijan if they're both there?
Oh God, no, no.
I just feel like we could do better with like a
You say that, and look at
edge,
our first
an
round
edge-
picks from the last couple of years.
but like a real edge rusher, not a Davenport, not a Peyton Turner, like someone who weighs less.
I'll
than,
tell you one follows Nolan. If he fell to us, that would be like the greatest thing ever.
Nolan Smith.
Yeah, and I'm trying not to talk about Georgia players because of my
He
bias, but
doesn't-
he's
How are they going to use him? The guy's 230
Third
something
down.
pounds.
Third down. That's what we need. Put
They have not shown they can do that
Yeah, I
with
don't-
any of these guys.
I think
There's
he-
been
Peyton Ellis in
signs.
year 5 finally figured it out, and he's, I guess, the closest comp to Nolan Smith size-wise.
But Nolan's got a bigger frame where he could get bigger. You don't think?
the only problem is
Dude, he
that
doesn't, his
no,
production's not there.
I think if Nolan gets bigger, his
You think he gets
Yeah,
that
he
much
is much
slower?
bigger, man.
go down. I think he's at his optimal.
He's at the,
Size
he's the
right
biggest
now.
he's getting.
But he's
right
almost
Yeah.
he's like 240, isn't he?
He's like
238.
238.
I think
240,
he-
235.
So I did obviously watch him every year he was healthy last year anyway. So I can actually do somewhat of the amateur scout on Nolan. I do think in the pros he projects as one of those guys who is a a Sam linebacker
Agreed.
in a defense that runs 3 on almost every down.
It's a 3. He fits a 3-4. He's a
I think,
prototypical 3-4.
he fits a
linebacker.
3-4, or he even fits a 4-3 when it's truly a 4-3. I mean, we're running a 4-3 hybrid where, yeah, our base is technically a 4-3, but like we talked about last episode, we're on the field with 2 linebackers so often.
3 safeties.
That
We only roll with 2 linebackers ever.
that's what I mean. Like, so Nolan is a guy that's going to get wasted if because he's not going to be your hand in the dirt defensive end every time.
Dude, I just think if you ran schemes for him to get to the passer, that guy's.
I
just
don't
don't
think
could
he's
be a
that
freak.
talented to do that with. If you had Micah Parsons, yeah.
The thing is, he would cost too much to be a purely situational player. I think he might project as like kind of like we talked about with Vilma.
So you
how
wouldn't take him
Vilma
at
was a-
29?
Well, no. Wait, at 29?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Right. I don't know that I would trade up to get Nolan, but I think
If he's there at 29, depending on who else is there, I would think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, I can probably find somebody I'd much rather do.
I mean, to me, he's like
but he's your
he's like a Hassan Reddick type of potential player. Similar style.
minus the sacks in college. That dude doesn't get.
If
he
your
has
team
no sacks.
if your team already runs a 3-4 or your team already runs a defense that keeps 3 linebackers on the field a majority of the time, then
Then I can see it.
there's nothing to worry about with him.
Right.
But as far as the Dennis Allen defense is concerned, he's one of those guys who you would hope to pick up in year 4 or 5 of his career, or maybe he gets picked by a trash team who goes through a defensive coordinator change.
Basically,
in
Hassan Reddick.
year
like you
3.
just said.
Yeah, you're right.
He
And
did nothing for 3 years, and then
so then you
Exploded.
pick him up for like a 5th round pick in year 4 or 5. And
I do
then,
agree you have to work around his skill set, but I don't know. That might be a cool piece to have on that defense.
dude, he's small, and he does not produce.
He's small for an NFL defensive end, but here's the other thing with
He's
him.
not a defensive end. He's not a defensive end.
Or quote unquote edge. You know, this new position.
He's a linebacker.
everybody's
He's a
come up with.
linebacker edge rusher as well. Though.
Yeah. Corey said it best at the beginning. He said he's just
He's a
prototypical Sam linebacker.
Yeah.
He's strong side. That's it. The guy is not lining up with his hand in the dirt because you're going to run all over him.
Now I will say this:
Every down,
Given
but
this-
on obvious passing downs, do you think he doesn't have the skill set to be that role for us? Because we don't have that. If we're being honest,
we don't have a guy that scares you on the edge.
You nervous about Cam and Peyton rushing the passer on 3rd down? Really?
I don't know if I'd be nervous about him. I don't
well,
see it.
if you're the big clunking tackle, which I think our division seems to have a lot of these days, he's getting around you. I mean, he can just
Man,
get
people
under.
get their hands on him, he's done.
I think he's more athletic than you think.
No,
Oh, he's extremely athletic, but he has no size.
He can get blown up in a run block where the offensive lineman knows exactly where the offensive lineman's going, and he's still trying to figure out is it a run or a pass. He's going to get popped. But on a passing down where he knows I don't care what you're doing, offensive lineman, I'm getting around you or under you or past you. He will do that. The question is, did they throw a run or did they throw a pass or do a run?
Right. I think you have to put him
know?
in the right spots, right? And but if he was there at 29, do you potentially get a guy who can impact a game at 29?
Yeah,
Where's he projected? Late teens?
in the
somewhere there?
teens.
Yeah, he's in the teens right now.
But I'll tell you, though, there's going to be, he's not a fit
He could-
for many teams,
yeah,
so
he
he
could-
could fall.
He could be one of those guys that
And that's what I'm
falls
saying.
that was unexpected.
If you just make some sort, you just
See,
get
but
third down.
your argument for him is my same argument for Gibbs. In that Gibbs isn't going to be that every down guy, but you expect
love
like the big
Gibbs.
plays, out of him. And it's the same thing with Nolan Smith. You're not getting, 1st and 2nd down plays out of him.
No.
You're getting strictly 3rd down.
You're counting we're okay there on 1st and 2nd down, and that
Right,
you can
right.
put a scheme together for him
So,
on
if
the
any-
downs.
like, so to me, he is the defensive counterpart to Gibbs, to where
Sure.
they're both playmakers in theory, in what they should translate to in the NFL. It's just a matter of like to me, I'd rather Gibbs because with Carr, and Kamara being out for we're speculating obviously, but
But
for
we can
however many
agree
games-
if you can get some sort of pass rush at that guy, there's a much more valuable position than
Now-
potentially a 3rd down running back.
Right. I think for first round,
First round, we're
looking
talking. Yeah.
impact because we've seen Ireland.
Well,
and
you're going to get
Loomis-
an impact out of Gibbs in the first round. You can know that.
I don't know.
You haven't watched much Gibbs, have you?
Well,
one of these guys is going to be there
There's
for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
NFL has seen. He's not the first fast guy to come into the NFL. He's not the first
No, he's
fast
not.
guy that can
His
catch
skill set
to
is
come into the
great
NFL.
for what we do. I agree
But I mean,
with that.
And the other thing with
Does-
Gibbs is he's as good of a receiver as he is a running back, which means he's a weapon. Put him in the slot like we used to do with Kamara.
Well,
You have him and Kamara on the field. Who the hell is going to guard that? And then you can sledge him,
well, they might not have
hammer
to.
people with Jamal.
We're going wishbone.
That'd be fun, man. No, but I mean,
That'd be
honestly,
pretty
look,
funny.
like Nolan Smith, I don't personally, I wouldn't want to pick him. He's not my guy. I like the guy out of.
We're saying if he
Northwestern.
fell to 29. You're saying no.
I'm saying no. Depending on, okay, look, if everybody else is gone, if there's no mayor,
Meaning the draft goes as it's projected. He's still there. He's the outlier. He's the one who shouldn't be there that's there. You're not drafting him at 29.
depends on who else is there, man.
I'm saying it goes as like on schedule. The top 25 are all gone. The only one to make it out that is like definitive top 25 players is Nolan Smith. You're not drafting Nolan Smith? You're that
I'll be
against
honest
him?
with you, probably not.
I would draft him. I would draft him at 29.
I would too in a second.
I wouldn't.
I'd run up there.
If that, I'll take a chance on one like the guy from Northwestern, the one whose name nobody can say. And
Oh, yeah.
Tommy Wah. I don't
But-
know how to say his last name.
What's his college?
He's
stat?
DT or D end.
He's good. And he ran a 4.49 at 282 pounds. The guy can play defensive end and defensive tackle, and he punished
My
people at the Senior
only
Bowl.
problem with that is that
He was good. He played well in college, too. More production than Nolan Smith, by far, if we're being honest.
does that run the risk though of him just being another Peyton Turner, Marcus Davenport? Because those guys are all 270 plus. They're great 40 times, great agility.
Yeah, here's the
I mean,
difference. They
all
had
the
zero
measurables.
production in college.
What
Either
was
of
it?
them.
I don't know his
But does
production.
that
That's what I'm
matter
asking.
when he played
like
for
how productive was
Northwestern? Do we care what his
It's better
Northwestern
than
production?
UTSA, where Davenport came
Well,
from.
no one's arguing with you on that one.
I don't know. It's debatable.
Davenport and Turner did not put up.
Well,
any
like what
numbers.
kind of stats did he put up? I don't. I know who he is. I don't know any of his college.
I'm
career
just
at all.
here's the thing. Maybe it's just a crawl that I have with the way the Saints have been drafting. I don't want another purported defensive end or NASCAR defensive tackle that looks or reminds me anything of Davenport or Peyton Turner. I mean, if you tell me the guy's 280 and fast,
We don't really
draft
know
him.
what Peyton Turner looks like yet.
Yeah, we were.
We've never
Forget-
seen him.
Forget what he does look like. But, you know, like, I think the discussion about Nolan Smith is interesting because not just because it's Nolan Smith, but because there's so many other guys like him. And you're seeing more and more of that type of player come into the league because they're being utilized so much more in the college game. You know, your smaller defensive ends or your quote unquote edge rusher linebacker types. You know, it begs the question, do we need to start fitting in guys like that? Do we need to start trying to find a place for guys like that on the field? Because it's not working with Peyton Turner.
Well, you also
It
have to
wasn't- it
realize
didn't
the
work with
Saints,
Davenport.
The Saints
It did
have
not
their profile of players that, size wise for
We
defensive end.
we need to change that.
They're not going to with Dennis Allen as a coach.
Well, then
They're not going to.
we're gonna continue to bust out.
To be
at defensive
fair,
end.
though, there was always someone opposite Cam that even Davenport was the pass rushing counterpart to him, even though he never got to the quarterback.
He goes with the
He was the disruptor that
the hateable asterisk.
Trey
of-
Hendrickson was the pass rusher opposite Cam Jordan. We had that type of someone who was more focused just on pass rush
Well, I think Trey Hendrickson is a good example of a guy who,
of a mistake by Loomis. Yeah, it's a pretty.
but he
pretty
didn't
glaring
fit all the
mistake.
measurables. He wasn't that guy that completely blew it away at the combine.
Trey Henderson's
He had good-
270 plus pounds, dude. He fits the measurables.
But he wasn't the guy that
They
ran
thought
that-
he was too slow.
right. He
Right.
didn't. He didn't.
There's a reason he was a third
I
round.
don't say measurables. I mean, like he didn't blaze.
But he fit their profile size wise, and he was fast enough. He did run a good speed, 40 time.
And to be fair, he's not bad against the run. He's actually
Right.
he's actually
Trey
pretty
Henderson
complete.
fits. Trey Henderson fits the dynamic.
He
or the
just
profile
happened
the
to be
Saints
an
lined
elite
to a
pass
T.
rusher that they didn't see coming. Is what
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And he became an elite pass rusher.
Yeah, but he fits the size, the height, weight, speed profile. of the
He
Saints.
does fit the Dennis Allen.
Yeah.
And I agree. I agree with that. Like the bigger, but he just ended up being this elite
Right.
pass rusher.
He turned him into
3
he turned
years in.
himself into it
Right.
because he wasn't that his first year or two. And he and I talked about it all the time. We're like, Henderson's good, man. It's a matter of time before.
Yeah,
he
all we
breaks
kept
out.
saying is that dude's in the backfield all the time. If he ever
Yeah.
gets that one
Yeah.
last step, it's gonna be.
he's always there.
And then he did when it was pay year, and we decide not to pay it and roll with Davenport, unfortunately.
Like, look at the Saints defensive ends. You got Carl Granderson, I think, is about 6'5", and he's about 275, 280 now. He came out, he was about 261. He's bulked up. You know, any article you read about him, they say he's around 280 now. Cam's the smallest one.
Cam's a big dude.
He's like 6'4", about 280.
Remember Cam
He's
talking?
280 all day.
But look at the other guys. Tano Passanio, he's like, what, 6'7"?
He's a giant. Yeah, he's
He's a giant. He weighs like 280.
Yeah.
Granderson's bigger now.
So why not get one of these guys?
They just look. We love those players. They're just not going to do it. It's not their thing. The Saints don't like the small, faster guys. They just don't. They've shown they don't know how to use them. It took a year 5 breakout from Caden Ellis.
Well, they also,
they
a
still let
couple
him
years
walk.
ago, put DeMario in that role, rushing off the edge, and had incredible impact that year. Now, they didn't do it a whole lot, but I don't know. I think it works in our defensive scheme. We just don't use it enough.
I think it can too. They don't use it. They just don't like it. They favor the bigger guys. For whatever reason, look, and we can argue till we're blue whether it's right or wrong, but that is their profile, their philosophy on that position. I don't agree with it. I don't think you agree with it.
I agree with it to the extent that you also have the other piece of the equation,
Yeah.
which is a guy who's just going to go get the fucking quarterback. Because it's too important now.
Look, we'll have this discussion next year with Harold Perkins, where we're going to be like, pick Harold Perkins.
Number 1 pick in the draft.
And
Should
guess
be.
what? He won't be because you know how big
Just
he is?
like Parsons
he
was.
doesn't-
6'1", 229.
And guess what? He will murder any offensive
I
tackle
agree,
in the
but-
league. Just
There's
Parsons is much bigger, agreed. But there are just certain guys.
Who have it, yeah.
there's a break point.
How
where
big was
speed
Von Miller coming out?
kills. I mean,
Yeah.
245, 250,
if that
If
6'6",
245,
6'1",
245? You
Yeah.
just can't block
Wait, what did you
that
say?
dude.
How big?
6.
No.
You don't think he's 6?
Von Miller?
6 what? 6'4"?
6'1"?
6'3".
Yeah, he's 6'3", 6'4".
I thought he was
think.
shorter.
But you just watch him, and the athleticism is so great that it doesn't matter what you put in front of those guys.
Yeah.
Now, you can beat them with the run. That's true. But
Well, technically speaking,
Miller's 6'3", 250.
now, he was 240-something coming out.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that was a small guy. But you just saw the difference in him and how the body lean was just different than other. Harold Perkins is that
Perkins
all day
has
long.
It. Perkins has
all
it
day.
all day.
Yeah, you can't, just like when they say, like with Breeze, you know, there's no defense for the perfect pass.
Parsons 6'3", 248.
Yeah. In terms of a pass rusher,
That's what we're talking about.
there's no
No,
just
I
like
agree
just
with
like
you,
there's no
but
defense.
I don't think, Nolan Smith isn't that guy.
Maybe
Yeah.
not. But he has crazy
traits.
athleticism. He hasn't proven it. I
We've
agree
seen
with
it
you
time and
100%.
time again. There's a certain skill that a defensive end edge rusher has. If they have that
The
bend mixed with
They
quickness,
just
there's
get
no,
under people,
there's
and
no-
you can't do anything about it.
the best offensive tackles can't do anything about it. So if you
I'm
find
just
the
telling you,
guy-
I have not seen it out of Smith.
That's fair to say you haven't seen it. To say he doesn't have it, I think maybe jumping the gun a little bit.
he has it. It's just that he has been off the field
Right.
for a while.
He's been hurt. Right.
He didn't get the opportunity to prove it against the absolute best at the end of the season in the Ohio State, you know,
He doesn't
LSU.
prove it during the season.
He was
His
proving
stats are
it when,
pedestrian, man.
well, he was hurt for half the season. When he went out, he was pretty. He was.
I think
look
the
at this guy,
athleticism
too.
was
1 and
pretty
2.
off the charts.
But also with Georgia's defense,
I mean, we're going
they
off
had,
of his combine performance. Is why the only reason he's up as high as he was.
Sure, that's fair.
But
guy was more of a
also
second-round
him
pick.
coming into Georgia, he was
He
highly
was a
touted.
5-star. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he was seen as an elite talent
he was
for a
like-
long time.
He is an elite talent, but it hasn't translated yet. He was a second-round pick, man, going into the combine. Then he ran a 4.38.
You're right.
All of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh, he's top 15." I still
But
think
we're not
he's gonna-
talking top 15. We're talking 29.
I think he's going to drop it. I mean, there's a good chance he's there because he doesn't fit everyone's defense.
Yeah,
At 29, I think you take a chance on somebody like that who could, if he could stay on the field, could change third down for us.
I think it's pretty safe to say that we are going to have at least what we perceive to be as Saints fans, not the GM or whatever. But we're going to think what
There's going to be options.
there
this
is
year,
what we
for sure.
believe to be a tough decision at 29.
Well, let's talk about that
you
next
know.
episode. Which, if there's options there at every position, which position do we prioritize as the most important, and who do we hope of those positions maybe falls 10 spots to us for us to take. Who's
All
our
things
number
being equal, I think pass rusher is probably would be the ideal to have the best player be a pass rusher.
That would, yeah. I'm still not against an offensive lineman.
I am not against an offensive
Because-
guard because this is Pete's
one? Well,
last year.
It's Pete's last year.
And do you want to give Ruiz
And
a
you got to
big
sign
extension?
Ruiz. Right.
Yeah, and
No, I don't.
Yeah,
I still
exactly.
don't.
Give me that big bastard from Florida, Osiris Torrance,
yeah,
transferred
hell
from
yeah.
ULL.
I'll sign Ruiz for fair value. I won't sign him for top.
No, and I
I'd
don't
bring him
think,
back. It's
I
just
don't-
got to be reasonable.
Yeah, and I think Pete has kind of bucked our trend on the business model there in terms of not
Well, he's done after this year.
right.
Well,
And
the
that's
only problem
something-
with
But
Pete
the last contract he got, everyone
was
was
absurd.
Like, wait, we're doing that?
at
We're
the time, it was the
We're going
top
back
paid
in?
guard in the league, correct?
Right.
By guaranteed money, it was the biggest contract. That may be incorrect, but it was way up towards the top.
We
top
just
five
assumed
for
we were letting Pete walk because of all the draft picks and who else was out there as free agents. And lo and behold, the Saints are re-signing him, and
We're a year away from having a Pete-sized hole at guard.
The thing on Pete,
which in
The-
terms
the
of
memes are hilarious, the
pass
jokes are
blocking is
hilarious.
fine.
Pete's a good player.
Pete's a good player. He's not a great player, but he is a good player.
good player.
that we paid too much money to.
Yeah.
And that's why everyone has a problem with it because he got a bigger contract than
You know
he
what?
probably should have gotten.
He's a good player, though.
If I'm making an argument for Pete, my hope is, we talked about Derek Carr in the first episode. Let's talk about Derek Carr. And he gets the ball out faster. So that should help Pete. Pete looked the best when he had a QB that could get the ball out quick. When he had Jameis, when he had
He's an unreal
Dalton,
run blocker too. I'm
Yeah.
telling you.
Look,
So-
when he gets out on a screen,
he's
mauling people.
When the QB's
He's
taking
fast,
a 5 to 7 step drop and is still scanning the field, I mean, that's pretty tough for any offensive lineman, and especially with Pete's, lack
yeah, but here's the
of.
thing: we don't have to really worry about Pete because Pete's gone next year unless something drastic happens.
Unless he resigns
He
for
took a pay
much
cut
lower.
this year, but got that last year of his contract voided.
But theoretically, he could sign a new deal at a much more affordable rate
could.
still.
Well, if you're
Just
drafting
that.
a guard the first round, you're drafting it for the future beyond Pete. But let's be honest, you're drafting it probably for about 8 games where
I'm against offensive line.
you don't have Pete for injury. I mean, he's so injury prone.
it's not the exciting pick, and I won't be happy. To
I
end the
don't
night
think
up,
we
but
should be planning for next year right now with the roster.
I agree with that.
We
I
talked
agree
about
with
that.
Yeah.
We need to pick something that can help us right away.
I want get playmakers. So flood Derek Carr with weapons, so there are no excuses for him not succeeding.
I think I'm fine. I think we can all agree on that one. So, I mean, I think the consensus is: do we want to wrap it up? Do we want the Saints to stay where they are, or do we want them to draft up if the right guy's there?
I want to either stay at 29 or trade back a few picks. Hopefully, somebody wants to move into the first round to get a quarterback and get that 5th-year option. In which case, trade back, pick up a second or a third.
I honestly don't. I don't think Loomis has ever traded a first.
He
round
doesn't
pick
trade.
back.
It's not going to happen. You asked me what would I do. I said I would like to see
Okay.
the Saints trade back.
Gotcha.
They're not going to do that.
I want to see us trade up into the 15s to get that guy we really want.
Who's that guy?
I have no clue because every
Pause,
year
you're
they do
trading
that.
next year's first to move up to the 15th.
Not, I don't want them to trade up next year's first.
Well, to get in the top 15, you're probably
I think that's
trading
probably
first.
what it costs.
I think we could package a nice little concoction of this year's and next year's second end up.
Well, the precedent's there with the Davenport trade. You went from
Yeah,
28 to
unfortunately,
14.
we have literally shot ourselves in the foot with that. So
you want to go from a spot back at 29 to go up to
I think
14?
it costs you next year's one.
It's going to
I
cost
do.
you next year's one.
Or minimum this year's
Well, I mean,
two
like,
and next year's
maybe
two.
not-
we
minimum.
have to keep this year's too.
when I say teens, I
But
don't
that's
mean
what it's
like,
going to cost if you want to do that.
Yeah,
not
I don't
15,
it's gonna cost
14,
some
but
time.
kind of like we were talking about earlier. If there's a guy at 20, but like 19, 18 teams, that would be
To get from 29 to about 21, 20, 21, 22, you're talking a third most on the chart.
I'm going to stay
I
at
like-
29 and see what falls to me because I truly believe there is a player that we want and have ranked in the top 20 that is going to fall to 29.
See, this is perfect. So let's roll into the next episode. We can explore this further. We got one person for staying put, one
Yep.
person for trading back.
I wanna be aggressive.
One person for trading up.
Yep. And so we'll get into that on the next episode. So thanks for joining us on another episode of the 28 to 3 podcast. Till next time.
comeback.